Hi everybody, welcome back for another Sippin On Sunshine video. We are on video number 7 today. We are going to be working on basket blocks 1, 2, and 3. I had a look at what we've got left going on for this project and I decided I'm going to add the filler blocks here at the end in video number 9. Filler blocks are nothing more than background quilting. This will go fast. So we'll be working on the filler blocks and our borders, and then we'll put our quilt together for video number 9. I have all my fabric and embellishment for the basket blocks in one bag. I have them clipped with numbers so I know which ones are baskets 1, 2, and 3. All 3 basket blocks need a piece of batting 7.5 by 9.5. We'll start with basket 1. There's a part A and a part B. Part A is making the dragonfly wings. You can see that this is 3 by 3. The smallest hoop that I have is a 5 by 7. I'll be using a 5 by 7 hoop for this. We're going to need wash away stabilizer. You want to go ahead and load some wash away stabilizer into your hoop. For the wash away, I have some of this HBI wash away stabilizer. It comes on a big fat roll. After we make the dragonfly wings in part A, we'll go on to part B to make the basket, and I'll be doing the background quilting. The background quilting is 6.5 by 8.5. I'll be using my 8 by 12 hoop for that, and you want your light mesh cutaway. I have another HBI stabilizer here. This is called No Show Mesh Medium Weight. I'm going to load that in my 8 by 12 hoop, load my wash away in my 5 by 7 hoop, then we'll be ready to start. Let's go ahead and start with our dragonfly wings for basket 1. I'm on a baby lock meridian, files on USB. The folding metal book stand will be linked below, as well as all the Sippin On Sunshine products like the magnetic needle minder. Let's find those dragonfly wings. It's going to be with the embroidery files. Basket 1, so we want these right here. Go ahead and hit set and embroidery. Got my wash away stabilizer loaded. We want to use the color Tango. We're going to stitch out the dragonfly wings placement line. Have your paper tape handy. We're going to create a mylar sandwich. We're going to put down a layer of tulle. This does come in the embellishment kit. You can also buy tulle online and in craft shops, same thing with mylar. So a layer of tulle goes down first, and it tells you to tape this, and then the next layer and the next layer. I made the butterfly and dragonfly plant pokes from the Cottage Garden Bella box. I taped them all at once. It was fine. When you look at your mylar, it kind of has stripes, so you can line it up or down, side to side, if it matters. So tulle, mylar, and then tulle. And we want to tape this down nice and secure. Got all 3 layers taped in place. The instructions tell you to match your top thread and your bobbin thread. I'm leaving my bobbin thread. This machine likes a 90 weight bobbin thread. I don't have the bobbin case that allows me to adjust the tension for a thicker thread, but if you like, match your top thread to your bobbin thread. We're going to stitch out the dragonfly wings tack down line. Once that's stitched out, you can remove your tape, and then we're going to trim the mylar and the tulle on the outside of the tack down lines. I have this sitting on my lap. I have double curve applique scissors and snips. Let's go ahead and give the snips a try. This stuff is very lightweight, but you can cut all 3 layers at once if I remember correctly. Yes, easily, no problem. You can cut all 3 layers. Be careful of your wash away stabilizer. If you accidentally cut your stabilizer, put a piece of paper tape on the back, press it down, and then continue to trim. I'll go ahead and trim the rest of this off camera. I've got this nice and trimmed. We're going to stitch out a decorative fill and then a satin outline. So if you can't get into the little tight areas, don't worry about it. It's all going to get stitched over. This is all done in the color Tango, still with the matching bobbin if you have that. I'm going to run these 2 steps together. So the dragonfly wings decorative fill and then the dragonfly wings satin outline. This is all stitched out. If you changed your bobbin thread, make sure to change it back to your regular bobbin thread. You can take it out of the hoop, trim outside of the outline, and then you want to dissolve the wash away stabilizer. You can put it in a little tray with some cool water, give it about 15 to 20 seconds, and then lay it flat to dry. We'll be using this in part B. So I would do that now, that way it's dry when we're ready to use it in the next part. Here's my dragonfly wings. They look great from the front. The back, you can see the white bobbin thread, but remember, we're going to put this on our quilt block. This is what you're going to see. So if you don't have the ability to match your bobbin thread to your top thread, they're still going to look great. I'm going to set this aside to dry. We're going to move on to making basket 1. We're going to start on basket 1. I am doing the block by block quilting. If you're not doing the block by block quilting, look at the instructions. There's some steps that you have to do before you can start your embroidery. Go ahead and load our block by block quilting. We need to find KDQ 529 drink 3 6x8. 529 drink 3, and then the 6x8 file. 6x8. I'm going to hit set, and then I'm going to hit add. We're going to add our basket 1 block, but we're going to have to slide it over a little bit. It's going to drop in centered, and we have to line this block up. Here's my basket 1. Right now it's in the center. The instructions tell us to align the right side of the block, so the right side of your basket block, with the outer right side of the quilting design file. Center both files vertically. It's already centered vertically, so rather than drag and drop, I'm going to use the arrows. Edit, move, and then just move it over. I'm looking at the instructions here. We're on page 56. After you slide it over, it shows it going all the way over to the side. It says the basket will be sewn into the quilt seam. So if you look at the quilts, here's the basket. It's sewn right there into the grass. When I look at the file on my screen, it's got this really pretty detail on the bottom. So if I slide it all the way over and I match up the outside edge like that, I'm going to completely cut off the bottom 1/4 inch of that. I'm going to do this a little bit different, and we'll see how it works, and then you can make the call how you want to make your block. I'm going to line it up, not with the very outer edge, but with the next line. The very outer edge is the cutting line, and then we have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I want the bottom of this lined up right there. Then when I sew this into my quilt, the bottom of the basket with this nice detail is going to be sitting on top of the grass. I don't want to lose any of that nice detail. And you can see there's plenty of room up here to make that adjustment and to fit our dragonfly wings. You can always watch and see how my block turns out and then make the call how you want to stitch out your block. If you go all the way over and line up the outside lines, you will lose a 1/4 inch off the bottom of that basket block. Since I had to make an adjustment on this, I'm going to hit OK, and then I'm going to hit memory and save it to my machine. And now I'm ready to start. The background quilting is done in the color linen. I'll go ahead and stitch through that. We've done background quilting before. You'll see that go by on the screen, and then we'll start with our embroidery. After the background quilting stitches out, you can see this little line right here. If you're using the background quilting, you don't need this. So I'm going to go needle minus plus. I'm going to go forward using the double arrows. That'll skip that step. And then I also don't need this step. Here's where we want to be. I want to hit OK, and we're ready to start our embroidery. This block is a very long stitch out. It shows 45 minutes on my machine. So if I can run some simple steps together, I will. We've done steps like this before. We're going to start with the color aloe and stitch out the leaves, fills, and then after that, change to the color clover and stitch out the leaves details. I'll go ahead and run those 2 steps together. The leaves are all stitched out. We're going to switch to the color cappuccino, and we're going to stitch out the basket placement line. Our placement line has stitched out. I'm using the embellishment kit, so I have this basket leather. It looks like wood. Embroidery leather is a PVC product. It's not an animal product. We want to go ahead and cover the placement line. The wood grain runs top to bottom in your hoop, so it looks like I cut this one correctly. If you didn't and it goes the other way, it's really not going to matter. Don't worry about it. It's still going to look good. Tape it in place, and then we're going to stitch the tack down, trim close to that tack down, and then we'll have some basket details. tacked down and trimmed, we want to switch to the color Mocha, and we're going to stitch out the basket details 1. We're going to switch back to cappuccino, and we're going to stitch out the basket details 2 and the decorative outline. Switch to the color Fox, and we're going to stitch out the basket handle fills. You want to put the color Mercury on your machine, and we're going to stitch out the bottle placement line. You want to place your bottle fabric right side up, covering that placement line. We'll stitch the tack down, trim outside the tack down line, and then stitch the bottle satin outline. We want to switch to linen. We're going to stitch out the bottle label fill. That's going to be down here at the bottom part of the bottle. Switch to Monarch and stitch out the label outline. The next 3 colors are all right here at the top. We're going to start with Fox and stitch out the cork wire fill, and then we're going to stitch out the bottle cork fill with the color Buttercup, and then stitch out the bottle rim fill with the color Mercury. I'm going to go ahead and run all of those together since they're all right up here at the top. Switch to the color Fox, and we're going to stitch out the basket rim fill. That's all stitched out. Next we are going to switch to the color Clover and stitch out the grass tufts fill. The next thing we're going to do is work on one of the flowers. We have the flower 1 petals fill in the color Butter, and then flower 1 details in linen, and then flower 1 center details in the color Hickory. I'm going to go ahead and run all those together. That flower is all stitched out. If you're using the embellishment kit, we're going to skip through the next few steps, 23, 24, and 25, because there's a button for this. If you're not using the buttons, go ahead and stitch that out. I'm going to move on to step 26, which is the dragonfly wings placement area, and that's in the color Hickory. I advanced my machine. You can see the needle is in the upper left. We're ready to stitch out the dragonfly wings placement. This little tiny oval is our placement for our dragonfly wings. If you look at the wings, it has a smiley face and then kind of a frowny face. You want smiley facing up. So this part is going to face up. You place the center right over that placement line. If you made the butterfly or dragonfly plant pokes, it's the same procedure. Once you've got that placed, you want to get some tape. Add your tape to the outside of the wings. Now you can see they popped up when I did that, so I'm going to double check the placement, make sure that's where it needs to go, and then retape that. And then we're going to add tape here on the side. And we want to place some wash away topping over these wings and then tape it in place. I think there's wash away in the embellishment kit. I just grabbed a scrap, so I'm going to eyeball it and see how much I need and cut off a piece, and then I need to tape that in place. If you've never worked with the wash away topping, it's kind of like saran wrap. You don't have to smooth it and get it all perfect because it goes away at the end anyway. I'm going to add tape to that and keep that in place. And then we're going to stitch out the dragonfly wings tack down and then the dragonfly body fill. I'm going to go ahead and run those 2 steps together. You stitch that out in Hickory. Once that's stitched out, we can remove the tape. This is going to make some crinkling noises. I'm going to pull off the tape, and then we can get rid of the wash away topping. It's probably going to tear away. Whatever doesn't tear away, you can wash away, but it's going to pull right off. You probably won't need to wash away anything. Pulled right off, and then you can go ahead and remove the rest of the tape. We've got some more stitching to do, so you don't want this to get caught under your stitching. Next, we're going to be working on the napkin. We want to switch to the color Monarch, and we're going to stitch out the placement line. I've got my napkin fabric. It says to place it right side down, centering the crease along the placement line. I think you're supposed to fold it in half. I don't feel like I need to. You've got your placement line. It looks really big, but if you take your napkin right side down, put the top corner right at the start of that stitching, and then your bottom corner is going to end right at the other end of the stitching. It's pretty much an exact match. It does say to tape that in place. I'm going to grab some tape. I'm going to add a piece of tape here, and then I'm also going to add a piece of tape here. I don't want this to move. Like I said, it's pretty much an exact fit. Got that tape down, and we're going to stitch the napkin tack down line. It's going to go corner to corner. That's the last thing we're going to stitch. What you want to do is remove the tape. And it says you can use a pressing cloth and press this over the ironing board. Let's try finger pressing it and see if it will stick. So you've got your little tack down line here. You see how the fabric is fraying a little bit? You may want to add some fray check to the outside of your napkin. If you want to get really fancy, you can put like little lace details or something on the outside of your napkin. I'm just going to finger press this and press that down. I also have little seam rollers that I can roll over it, but I think a good finger press is probably going to be enough. Yep, I think that's all you need. If you do want to press it at your iron, you've got to use a pressing cloth. Don't get your iron on this embroidery leather or your dragonfly. You don't want to mess up any of your hard work. We are done with basket 1. We're going to move on to basket number 2. Let's move on to basket 2. We're going to load our background quilting. We need to find KDQ 528 Insect 7, and we want the 6x8 design. 6x8. And then we're going to go ahead and add basket 2. I've got that set. We have to move the basket again. We need to do that for all 3 baskets, and I'm going to adjust this one the same way. I'm going to slide it over to the right, but not all the way over. I want it lined up with the other line, which is the outside of the quilting design, so that I have that 1/4 inch space, which will make my basket so right against that seam line. That's how I want to do that, same as I did with the other one. I'll go ahead and put that on my machine. We're ready to go. I have my 8x12 hoop with the light mesh cutaway stabilizer. It has us doing the background quilting for this in the color Buttercup. The color I picked for Buttercup is a very bright yellow. I don't like the way it looks when I stretched out a piece of the thread over the background fabric. So I'm going to be doing my background quilting in linen. If you're not doing the background quilting, please refer to the instructions, page 59, and go through these steps. I'm going to go ahead and set the background quilting to music. The quilting is all stitched out. You'll notice you've got that little line on your machine again, just like basket 1. Go ahead and go through that. And then you've got the rectangle on the outside. Skip that as well. We want to put color cappuccino on our machine. We're going to stitch out the bread placement line. If you hear a bit of squeaking in the background, it's because my little chihuahua Libby is on my lap and she is snoring. The placement line has stitched out. We've got our bread fabric. Go ahead and make sure you cover the placement line, stitch the tack down, and then trim everything outside of the tack down line. Once you've got that tacked down and trimmed, you can stitch the bread decorative outline still in the color cappuccino. The decorative outline has stitched out. We're going to switch to the color mocha and stitch out the bread details. It's going to stitch out the little bread slice marks. That's all stitched out. We are going to switch to the color fox and stitch out the basket handle fill. Next, we're going to stitch out the leaves and the stems fill in the color aloe. Next, we're going to work on flower 1. It's got 2 steps. We're going to start with the color Mercury, and we're going to stitch out the flowers 1 petals fill, and then we're going to switch to the color Grotto Blue and stitch out the flowers 1 centers fill. I'm going to go ahead and run those 2 steps together. The flowers 1 are done. We're going to move on to the flowers 2. We're going to start out with the color Butter and stitch out the flowers 2 petal fills, and then switch to Linen and stitch out the flower 2 center fill. I'm going to go ahead and run those 2 steps together. Those flowers are all stitched out. The next 2 steps, 13 and 14, you would use if you're not using the button from the embellishment kit. I am using the button, so I'm going to skip over 13 and 14, put the color Fox on my machine, and we're going to stitch the basket placement line. You want to grab this really nice woven look leather from your embellishment kit, or if you're using fabric, use that, whatever you're using. Lay that down, cover the placement line, we'll stitch the tack down and then trim. Switch to the color Mocha, and we're going to stitch out the basket details 1. Switch to the color Fox, we're going to stitch out the basket details 2 and decorative outline. We've got 2 steps left. We're going to use the color Mocha and stitch out the basket rim fill, and then we'll stitch out the grass tufts fill with the color Clover. I'm going to go ahead and run those 2 steps together. We're all done with basket number 2. It looks great. I've got that 1/4 inch right here again, so the basket bottom detail will be visible when it's sewn in the quilt. If you've got a gap here, that's where your button's going to go. Let's go ahead and start basket number 3. Let's move on to basket number 3. We're going to bring up our quilting file. We define KDQ 530 Weather 7 6x8. And then we'll add our quilting file. We're on basket number 3. We need to do the same thing and line this up on the right hand side. I'm going to line this up the same way I did the first 2 baskets. That looks good. Save it to my machine and we're ready to go. The instructions again call for the background quilting in Buttercup. I went ahead and put linen on my machine. I like the way that that looks in the background for these basket blocks. I'm going to go ahead and work up through the background quilting. The background quilting is done. I need to move through the next 2 steps again. We don't need those. We're going to start with the color Cappuccino, and we're going to stitch the bread placement line, place our bread fabric, tack it down, trim, and then stitch the decorative outline, all with Cappuccino. It's just like the other basket, so I'll run all of that together. We're going to switch to the color Mocha and stitch out the bread details. We're going to switch to the color Mercury. We'll stitch out the bottle placement line. We'll place our bottle fabric, tack it down, trim away the extra, and then stitch out the bottle satin outline. I'm going to go ahead and run all of that together. It's just like we did on the other basket. Switch to the color Aloe, and we're going to stitch out the label placement line on our bottle. We want to grab our label fabric. This must be the only place we use this fabric because I didn't cut the square. So I'm going to go ahead and place that. I'm actually going to cut that little bit of green fuzzy thread. We're going to tack it down, trim, and then we'll stitch a label satin outline, and that's all going to be in the color Aloe. That's all stitched out. The next 2 steps are for the lid. We're going to start with the color Buttercup. That's my bright yellow. I'm going to use that and stitch out the lid fill, and then I'm going to switch to Butter and stitch out the lid detail. I'll go ahead and run those together. That's looking really good. We are going to switch to the color Clover and stitch out the flower stems and leaf fills. Switch to the color Tango. We're going to stitch out the flower placement line. Grab your flower fabric, cover the placement line. We're going to stitch a tack down and trim. There will be a decorative outline, so if you can't get into the little crevices, don't worry about it. Just do the best you can. Once you've got that trimmed, you can stitch the decorative outline, and then it's also going to stitch a little flower bud right here on the top of that stem. Put the colored linen on your machine, and we're going to stitch out the flower center fill. We're going to work on the basket next. We're going to start with the color Cappuccino, stitch out the basket placement line, and then we've got that same wood look leather. We'll place that, tape it down, tack it down, and trim. I'm going to run that together. We're going to switch to the color Fox and stitch out the basket details. We're going to switch back to Cappuccino and stitch out the basket decorative outline. We're going to switch back to the color Fox and stitch out the basket handle fill. Switch back to Cappuccino, and we're going to stitch out the basket handle details. We're all done with the basket. We're going to start on the ladybug. We need the color Hickory, and the first step is going to be the ladybug body fill. It's really tiny. It's going to stitch out quickly. Then we're going to stitch the ladybug wings fill with Monarch, and then we'll go back to Hickory and stitch out the ladybug head and antenna fill. And for the ladybug spots, we're going to use the color Linen. These are all going to stitch fairly quickly, so I'm going to run them together. You'll go Hickory, Monarch, Hickory, Linen. Going to switch to Clover, and we'll stitch out the grass tuft fills. The grass is all stitched out. I took a moment and trimmed the jump threads. I found these scissors. I forgot I have them. I have the old scissor collection by Kimberbell. These work pretty good for getting in and trimming those jump threads on the ladybug. We're going to switch to the color Grotto Blue and stitch out our napkin placement line. We're going to place this just like the other one, right side down, corner to corner. Add some tape. And then we're going to stitch that tack down, and I'm going to finger press it. That's the last thing we have to stitch out. You can remove your tape and fold over and press. Again, if you're going to press this with an iron, you definitely want to cover with a pressing cloth. Don't let your hot iron get on that embroidery leather. A nice finger press works very well. Let's head over to the table. We're going to trim our blocks. We're going to trim all of our basket blocks. They all trim to the same size, and it's a size that we have with our orange pop rulers. Great way to end the embroidery day today. This is the 6.5 by 8.5, so I'm going to put that down, and then also put the next largest one down. Gives me a little more space for my hands. Once I've got everything lined up, I like to grab my little tin of clips. I use that like a weight to hold it in place. Quick recap. Make sure your blade is as far over as possible. Go all the way around all of your blocks. If you haven't used orange pop rulers before, I did go really slow for the first video with the blocks. I'm going to go ahead and set the rest of this to music. Here's a look at all the blocks. They look so good. They're going to look great in the quilt. I really like the little napkins. The dragonfly wings look great even if you didn't change your bobbin color to match. Let's talk about what we're going to work on next week. Next week for video number 8, we're going to make the pinwheels 1, 2, and 3, the grass, and the pennant blocks. All the Sippin On Sunshine products are linked below. Please leave me any comments or questions. Remember to like, subscribe, share with your friends. You can click the bell to get notifications for whenever new videos are posted. And I'll be back next week. We'll keep working on our Sippin On Sunshine quilt. Only a couple more weeks to go. See you next time.